Alright, eBay users are fighting back, apparently against the Scalpers for the Switch too, which is freaking phenomenal, right? Uh, there's been this whole just insane amount of Scalpers from the PS, pretty much it's the PS5, really, and the Xbox freaking fridge. So in all honesty, I'm kind of happy to say that people are like finally starting to troll them. I'm just wondering why did it take the Nintendo Switch 2 for people to start fighting back?
Went live not too long ago, and it went about as well as expected. It was pretty chaotic overall. That's not to say there aren't folks who've successfully managed to get their pre-orders, but websites would go down, or you'd need to refresh them, or buttons wouldn't work, or you'd see errors and server issues because of the sheer demand and the amount of people who flooded websites like GameStop and Target, Walmart, Best Buy, so on and so forth. I, on the day off, on the hour of, had all of these tabs open, and I struggled with most of them. Managed to get a pre-order on Target, but it involved a lot of like spamming place order because I'd hit that button and there'd be like errors for some reason. And then on Best Buy and Walmart, there were like queues, but none of those queues ultimately like ended up panning out. And then with GameStop, the hours later, it was just kind of a free for all. But server crashes and the like prevented any sort of ability for a lot of folks to be able to pre-order from GameStop's website. Though, if you go in store, you might have a better chance. That's something that a lot of people forget. You can go in store, and there's a separate stock for that. But with all said and done, yeah, a lot of headlines talking about how Switch 2 pre-orders were a total mess, even if folks eventually managed to.
I mean, right off the bat, they instantaneously just like started putting them up. I don't even think they did the old like protections where it was like 1 or 2 per like online order. Like all of that stuff, I'm pretty sure was removed.
Get hold of a console, though not
like they really were not prepared whatsoever for this.
Not everyone was so lucky, and that in large part has to do with the fact that scalpers no doubt have come in and collected as much loot as possible for them to be able to resell and to make some kind of profit off of this high demand, low supply product. But yeah, as you can see right now, Switch 2 is sold out everywhere. If you go to Best Buy, it's saying coming soon or that it's out of stock. If you go to Target, it's out of stock. I'm showing only the Mario Kart World bundle, but if you go to the regular base Switch 2 package, same thing, it's all sold out. Walmart, out of stock. We got GameStop here, not available, so on and so forth. And amidst all the chaos, retailers like GameStop had to put out statements such as, "We're seeing overwhelming demand for Switch 2, which is causing some site issues. In-store pre-orders are open and running smoothly. Our team is actively working to fix it. Hang in there, we'll keep you posted." And then it didn't take long before GameStop just full-on said that pre-orders for Switch 2 have sold out online, though they're still available in store. So if you want a chance of pre-ordering Switch 2 to get it on launch day, you might want to check out some GameStop stores near you and see what they got in stock. But yeah, scrolling down through the comment section, you can see a bunch of folks discussing their experience of, being able to add the product to their cart, but not being able to check out, and just having issues with the website in a way where even if you showed up exactly on time,
I wouldn't be surprised if they flat out just cancel all orders. And frankly, I think it would be a legendary move if they did that. Like, hey, we're canceling all freaking orders, and you better show up with a receipt, or you better show up with your freaking, Now, that's pretty much it. Unless you show up with this, we're not gonna, it's not gonna be reserved for you.
it was just kind of a bit of a lottery.
Or, just basically, cancel all of them and basically tell them, hey, please resubmit. Like, you're bringing your ticket, make a support ticket, make a support, something.
In terms of whether you were the lucky one to be able to completely get through a purchase process. Now, another option is you can go to Nintendo's website and you can register for them to inform you when Nintendo itself is able to ship you a Switch 2 unit directly. You can pick between the Mario Kart World Bundle or the regular base Switch 2, but do keep in mind that
I'm gonna be real with you. If they're scalping this thing for $500, I'm not seeing a universe where the average person is gonna be buying this for little Timmy at the perfectly scalped $800, $1,000, $1,500. You get what I'm saying?
Especially at this stage when so many people are likely registered, it's possible that if you do register through Nintendo directly, then invites for its own Switch 2 sales may arrive after launch due to the high demand. And invitations for those who register apparently will start going out May 8th in the US, so keep an eye out for your emails if you've managed to register long before the big wave of pre-orders started to go live. And then there are some outlets like Amazon here who have not put up a Switch 2 listing yet, and then there are some outlets like Sam's Club and Newegg that have Switch 2s kind of up and listed, but they have not sold them yet. The pre-orders for Switch 2 have not gone live on these websites. So these are two outlets to keep an eye out for if you had no luck with the other major retailers. Now, I previously
Newegg was by far one of the best places to get one. However, they didn't exactly have a lot. That's the issue.
brought up Scalpers,
Only
and
one
that's
company
a
moving
significant
very slowly,
part of
basically.
today's story because it
Well, at the
concerns
fastest
a
speed they
way
can
in which
realistically
the
go.
internet is essentially trying to fight back against Scalpers or make their lives more difficult. Scalpers, with their bots and software and their macros and you name it, they have the ability to make purchases faster than any human being is capable of, obviously, because they're using essentially machine. And already, if you go to eBay, you will find that there are tons of Switch 2 listings. But in the mix of all that is something rather interesting. So if you go
Read the
to
description.
eBay right now and search for Nintendo Switch 2s, you'll find a bunch of listings that have like really reasonable price points. You can see right here, the Mario Kart World Bundle is being sold at an MSRP of $500. Hell, some are being sold for cheaper at $450. So it's a very strange situation where you're like, why are the prices here so reasonable when scalpers usually mark up their prices? Well, if you
Bro, they're trying to trick the AI.
look at all of these listings, you can see that at the end of the title, at the end of the name of the product, you'll find a read description label. So right here, this $500 listing for the Mario Kart World Bundle of Switch 2 says read description. Scrolling further down, please read description. And that's especially...
Like, at what point is somebody of some form of authority going to just have to step up? How the hell is this the customer's job? Because that's what all these people are. These are all just customers. Nobody here works for Nintendo or the government or any of that. Why is this the customer's job to do this?
common in listings where the prices are in line with the MSRP, but there are even some that are marked up prices that still say that you should read the description. So for example, right here we have a $700 listing for the base Switch 2 that also says please read description. And so what happens when you go into these listings and actually read the description? Well, you will find messages such as this. So right here we have one example of many. Scrolling down and reading the description, you'll find the following text. Listing for scalpers/bots, selling a photo/picture of the new Nintendo Switch 2 console. Do not buy if you want the physical system. You're paying $500 for just a photo or picture of the new Nintendo Switch 2 console. Buy at your own discretion, no refunds. And you can see
I love that, by the way, because it's kind of, first of all, if somebody legitimately buys this thinking it's a Switch, like a legit person, I feel like that still makes you a douchebag if you don't give them their money back.
that going to other listings of Nintendo Switch 2
Don't
pre-orders
get me
that
wrong,
have the
it's cool what he's doing, like, in theory, but if someone legit, like a legitimate person, like, buys one, like, grandmama decided she wanted to buy one for little Tim boy, and she freaking buys a picture, and the guy's like, nah, no refunds because you're a scalper, and grandma's like, what the hell, let's get a freaking little toy for Tim. Then I kind of feel like that makes you just
all
as
of them kind of
douchey.
say the thing. They're just selling a picture, a printed picture of the console rather than the console itself.
Of course, all we can do is hope and cross our fingies that, like, that it's a perfect world and that nobody who legitimately, is trying to just get a Switch accidentally falls for this.
And
But
they
still,
highlight how this is primarily meant to kind of make life more difficult for scalpers. Here we have another one, listing for scalpers/bots. Here we have another one, listing to prevent non-human system/resellers, absolutely no refunds. So yeah, there are tons of these listings, as you can see, to the point where a lot of scalpers actually
I want to point out, by the way,
listing to prevent non-human systems.
this is from a year ago, or in the past year. What does that even freaking mean? Absolutely horrible seller. Scam artist ordered over a month ago. Never got item and seller will not respond to any messages. Buyer definitely beware of this account. Got it. So I think this guy is just scamming other people, and he's hoping. I get that he's putting this in the item description that it's meant to catch scammers, but this guy might just be trying to catch grandmas too. Like I'm just gonna call it what it is. He might also be trying to get poor grandma, and he's gonna say no refund as well to her too.
System/resellers, absolutely no refunds. So yeah, there are tons of these
And
listings.
I'm just saying, guess who's gonna get in trouble? Because it's sure as hell not gonna be the scalpers. It's gonna be this fool because he took grandma's money.
As you can see, to the point where a lot of scalpers actual pre-orders where they would ship the actual product at a significantly marked up price, all that's kind of getting buried a little bit, though it is worth noting that this does break eBay's terms of service, so they are cracking down on this stuff. So for example, right here is an older iteration of this page. This is the refresh version where some of these listings are still up, but if I go to like an older version of this search and I try to see what this product entails, you'll see that this has been removed by eBay. But that is not stopping a lot of these listings from still cropping up.
What did you show
but
me
you
there?
also find that generally there are a lot of listings that are legitimate folks who did pre-order the console and are just selling them at marked up prices ranging from $600 to $800. So yeah, the scalping scene is alive and well with the Nintendo Switch 2, unfortunately, with an
Nah, son, I'm convinced that this might even be, maybe not in every situation, but I'm convinced that this might even be a situation where a scalper is putting up the game and is also putting up the anti-scalper stuff to attack other scalpers.
attempt to try to bury that stuff. Now, I don't know how effective...
Like, if you're a scalper that scalps manually and you never use bots, or you can bet your cheeks you can annihilate other scalpers.
This method will actually end up being, on one hand, because the listings for Nintendo Switch 2 on eBay is flooded with stuff that essentially you are just getting not the product itself. It might make searching for a legitimate pre-order or, a legitimate scalper listing with marked up prices just more confusing for the average Joe. And because all of this altogether looks like a scam and you don't know what's a scam and what isn't, or, what's a legitimate listing and what isn't, it just might disincentivize your average Joe, folks who, are a little more skeptical about this stuff from actually spending money on an eBay version of the Nintendo Switch 2 or an eBay listing of the Nintendo Switch 2, given the potential of purchasing something that isn't the legitimate product. But on the other hand, for those who are engaging with this tactic, it's a matter of being able to produce enough listings at a faster rate than eBay is able to remove them, and eBay has been removing them pretty quickly. Combined with the fact that what if there is some average Joe who does end up actually making a purchase and not reading the description, not realizing that these listings are actually just, anti-bot, anti-scalpers listings. And
yeah, it's the no refunds thing that makes it scummy and like really, really sketch.
They keep saying no refunds and whatnot, though I imagine they can contact eBay and dispute that. But yeah, I wonder if...
Yeah, but again, it sort of shows the intention behind like what he's trying to do. Because theoretically, you've already achieved victory by having the AI purchase the thing, and even if they ask for a refund, it's still gonna take a day, like 24 hours or so, for them to like get that money back. And that basically creates a little bit of downtime, a little bit of lag.
At the same time, it ends up doing more harm than good if the average Joe's going in there looking at just the prices for the Switch 2 listings and not reading the description and making purchases under the impression that these are legitimate listings and not listings that are intended to fight back against scalpers and bots and make their lives more difficult, or making, searching for legitimate Switch 2 scalped listings more difficult. But the fact that there's any sort of activity happening on that front does highlight that we are living in a time when people are getting more and more sick and tired of scalpers and are doing anything they can, just, trying to find any means that they can poke at against scalp.
And you know what's funny is that they could probably get better results if they all just universally went and like 1-star bombed eBay on the App Store and put like it's infected with scalpers. If you just do all that, you really just gotta like vote with your wallet, in your opinion, That's all you gotta do, but like nobody wants to do that. They want to go and do all this other extra stuff.
Scalpers. So the real way to fight back against scalpers would be if retailers actually set up systems that are sensical and that do aid in fighting.
The best way to do that would be to freaking flood the reviews, flood the markets, flood everything as a consumer, letting them know how disappointed you are in this whole situation. Because at the end of the day, the only people that are going to be able to fix this are like Best Buy, eBay. Like, they're the only people that are going to be able to fix this stuff. They don't care, of course, because as long as somebody's giving them money for the consoles, who cares who it is, right? But that's kind of what it comes down to.
Fighting back against scalpers, but
why would they
from what I could tell based on my purchase experience of the Switch 2 on Best Buy, on Target, on Walmart, on GameStop, and other retailers, those who have not gone live with their Switch 2 pre-orders yet, I don't sense that they're doing a whole lot. Nintendo did try to implement a system.
Again, why would they though? Because at the end of the day, the scalper is paying for the consoles. They're just going to sell them at a higher price. But they are paying for them. So as far as Nintendo's concerned, as far as Best Buy is concerned, as far as anybody else is concerned, they're selling the console, and that's what they want.
Where if you want to have priority when it comes to these invitations on their official website of purchasing a Switch 2 directly through them, you do need to meet certain criteria, like having a Nintendo Switch online account and having an account for a certain period of time and having played a certain number of hours of games on the Nintendo Switch. If you meet those criteria, then when it comes to Nintendo selling Switch 2s directly, the priority will be the fans. And so with these criteria in place, it's more difficult for scalpers to be able to take advantage of the Nintendo Switch invite system. But when it comes to retailers and their just lack of consideration when it comes to like implementing security systems against scalpers and not having those in place, yeah, scalpers had just, you know, a feast essentially. But yeah, regardless of the outcome of all of this, fuck scalpers. I think that is something we can all universally agree upon. And hopefully the scalping situation is nowhere near as bad as it was for the PlayStation 5, where at one point like 10% of all consoles went to like, you know, scalpers and the like, and there was like research done analyzing.
Nah, son, you gotta pull a real pimp move. What you do is you wait, however long it is. How long did it come out? Like 2 years ago? You wait until now when the scalpers are like desperate to sell them. At this point, they're like selling PlayStation 5s for like lower than retail, and then that's when you buy one.
The scalping situation for PlayStation 5.
And now there's plenty of games for the PlayStation 5 to play. There was no games at the beginning. Just like how there's not going to be any games for the Switch at the beginning. So just wait.
Out of money that scalpers made.
The real true release date is a year after the console comes out, because that's when the actual games to play.
Like 10% of all consoles within that time period went to scalpers. That was ridiculous. I hope Switch 2 is nowhere near that bad. But given retailers' inability to be able to kind of put proper security measures in place, even...
I'm gonna keep saying I don't think it's an inability. It's a lack of reason to, a lack of not ambition, but like there's no real reason for them to block this, because if it, like it's like saying why would you purposefully stop yourself from selling like a product? You get me?
And you know, in the year 2025,
whether it's a scalper or not,
would have found some kind of solution or some way to significantly mitigate scalpers.
No, see, the scalpers are the solution to people not buying enough consoles. You understand?
It's looking like, yeah, right now, scalping will be pretty bad given the level of demand on the Nintendo Switch 2, which currently, like, based on various, you know, reports from analysts and the like, it's expected to be the best launch for a video game console ever based on the demand that we're seeing so far. But I'm curious to hear from you.
They said the same thing about, like, every freaking, no. And again, a lot of, especially since a lot of it's going to be like scalpers trying to get them too, like who the hell actually knows?
Guys,
right?
What you think about this anti-scalping kind of attempt that is being made on eBay with the flood of, you know, the redescription versions of Nintendo Switch 2 listings that highlight that, you know, this is not the actual product. It's just an anti-bot, anti-scalper method that aims to bury the actual scalpers listings. Do you think that, you know, that was a valiant attempt? Do you think it does more harm than good? Do you think it's something that will work in the long term? And what's your experience been like when it comes to trying to pre-order a Switch 2, if that is something you attempted to do when pre-orders went live?
I think basically the exact same thing that happened with the PlayStation 4s, I mean the 5s, is going to happen. It's going to be the demand is going to be artificially inflated. They're going to buy a whole lot. The whales are going to buy the scalped consoles. And honestly, little by little, as the scalpers reduce prices, more and more people will buy. It's gonna be a drip, market, like or like a drip down of like the price until eventually they reach to the point where they can literally no longer, like they're just trying to get rid of the PlayStations at this point, and they're just gonna sell it off for cheap. But by that point, they'd probably already made all the money they wanted / needed before they ever got anywhere near that point. So unless the actual stores do something to stop this, which they're not, because why would they want to stop themselves from selling? I think it's just gonna come down to the public needing to basically make a big deal about it. So you're gonna have to start like dislike bombing their apps, dislike bombing their stuff like that. Because at the end of the day, what else is there? Well, you can't fight them with the wallet. The scalpers are the ones paying for the consoles now instead of you. They don't care about your wallet.
And what do you think Nintendo and retailers need to do better to help mitigate the scalping situation? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Yong Yea. I'll see you guys next time. Yong Yea out.
Thank you to my patrons and members for voting.
Phenomenal video.
So,
yeah, no, it's gonna be a wild one. It's gonna be pretty freaking insane the next couple, for the next, honestly, the rest of the year. Freaking A. It's gonna be interesting to see how exactly they're gonna handle that one. And I don't mean the stores, by the way. I know how the stores are gonna handle it. They're not. They're gonna sell to scalpers. Thanks for hanging out. Like or dislike, comment, and subscribe, and become a Monodachi today. I live stream all day, Monday through Friday, so go say hi. That's all for now, Monos. Goodbye, and thanks for swinging by. Salut!